Heads muzzy, the mood swinging at one moment towards the heights of unreasoning joy, at the next towards the trough of despondency. Singing, pointless jokes which seemed irresistibly funny, guitar chords, Myslavsky laughing drunkenly. Elena had not had time to collect herself since Tallberg's departure. White wine does not remove the pain altogether, only blunts it. Elena sat in an armchair at the head of the table. Opposite her at the other end was Myslavsky, shaggy and pale in a bathrobe, his face blotchy with vodka and insane fatigue. His eyes were red-ringed from cold, the horror he had been through, vodka and fury. Down one of the long sides of the table sat Alexei and Nikolka, on the other Leonid Shervinsky, one-time first lieutenant in His Majesty's own regiment of Lancers and now an aide on the staff of Prince Belarukov, and alongside him Second Lieutenant Fyodor Stepanov, an artilleryman, still known by his high school nickname of Karas the Carp. Short, stocky and really looking very like a carp, Karas had bumped into Shervinsky at the Turbin's front door about 20 minutes after Tallberg had left. Both had brought some bottles with them. In Shervinsky's package were 4 bottles of white wine, while Karas had 2 bottles of vodka. Beside that, Shervinsky was loaded with an enormous bouquet, swathed in 3 layers of paper, roses for Elena, of course. Karas gave him his news on the doorstep. He was back in artillery uniform. He had lost patience with studying at the university, which was pointless now anyway. Everybody had to go and fight, and if Petliura ever got into the city, time spent at the university would be worse than useless. It was everyone's duty to volunteer, and the mortar regiment needed trained gunnery officers. The commanding officer was Colonel Malyshev. The regiment was a fine one, all his friends from the university were in it. Karas was in despair because Myslavsky had gone off to join that crazy infantry detachment. All that death or glory stuff was idiotic, and now where the hell was he? Maybe even killed at his post somewhere outside the city. But Myslavsky was here, upstairs. At her mirror, with its frame of silver foliage, in the half-light of the bedroom, the lovely Elena hastily powdered her face and emerged to accept her roses. Hurrah! They were all here. Kara's golden crossed cannon on his crumpled shoulder straps and carefully pressed blue breeches. A shameless spark of joy flashed in Chervinsky's little eyes at the news of Tallberg's departure. The little hussar immediately felt himself in excellent voice, and the pink-lit sitting room was filled with a positive hurricane of gorgeous sound as Chervinsky sang an epithalamion to the god Hymen. How he sang! Chervinsky's voice was surely unique. Of course he was still an officer at present, there was this stupid war, the Bolsheviks, and Petliura, and one had one's duty to do, but afterwards when everything was back to normal he would leave the army, in spite of all his influential connections in Petersburg, and they all knew what sort of connections those were, knowing laughter, and he would go on the stage. He would sing at La Scala and at the Bolshoi in Moscow, as soon as they started hanging Bolsheviks from the lampposts in the square outside the theater. Once at Smorinka, Countess Lendrikov had fallen in love with him because when he had sung the epithalamion, instead of C he had hid E and held it for 5 bars. As he said 5, Chervinsky lowered his head slightly and looked around in an embarrassed way, as though someone else had told the story instead of him. Mise? 5 bars. Well, let's have supper. And now the room was hung with wispy pennants of smoke. Where are these Senegalese troops? Come on, Chervinsky, you're at headquarters, tell us why they aren't here. Lena, my dear, drink some more wine, do. Everything will be all right. He was right to go. He'll make his way to the Don and come back here with Denikin's army. They are coming, said Chervinsky in his twinkling voice, reinforcements are coming. I have some important news for you. Today on the Kreshchatek I myself saw the Serbian billeting officers, and the day after tomorrow, in a couple of days' time at the latest, 2 Serbian regiments will arrive in the city. Listen, are you sure? Chervinsky went red in the face. Well, really. If I say I saw them myself, I consider that question somewhat out of place. That's all very well, but what good are 2 regiments? Kindly allow me to finish what I was saying. The prince himself was telling me today that troop ships are already unloading in the port of Odessa. Greek troops and 2 divisions of Senegalese have arrived. We only have to hold out on our own for a week, and then we can spit on the Germans. Treacherous bastards. Well, if all that's true, it won't be long before we catch Petliura and hang him. String him up. I'd like to shoot him with my own hands. And strangle him too. Your health, gentlemen. Another drink. By now minds were getting fogged. Having drunk 3 glasses, Nikolka ran to his room for a handkerchief, and as he passed through the lobby, people act naturally when there's no one watching them, he collapsed against the hat stand. There hung Chervinsky's curved saber with its shiny gold hilt. Present from a Persian prince. Damascus blade. Except that no prince had given it to him and the blade was not from Damascus, but it was still a very fine and expensive one. A grim Mauser in a strap-hung holster, beside it the blued steel muzzle of Karachter automatic. As Nikolka stumbled against the cold wood of the holster and fingered the murderous barrel of the Mauser, he almost burst into tears with excitement.